Hey guys, Denise with Lazy K Homestead. Well, here we are, Friday, the 30th of December. Can't believe this year is passed by. It's crazy. But what I'm going to do today is make a traditional Tennessee Appalachian, depending where you're from, snack cake. And that is a real special cake here. And it's kind of interesting because you make thin layers of cake, which is kind of like a cookie, but then you put applesauce and dried apples, which you rehydrate. And we made these apples ourselves, dehydrated them in our dehydrator from the apples that we had in our earlier videos. And I'm going to rehydrate them, and I'm going to chop them up, and I'm going to mix them with my apple butter. And that is what you put between the layers. And then you put it on top and you wrap it with plastic wrap for 48 hours, and it moistens the cake. So it's kind of interesting. And I watched a documentary on it the other day. Willis's mom made it a few times. His granny made it a few times. So I thought I would go ahead and make this. And one of his friends said he would love to eat it. So Matthew, this is for you. So here we go. Step one for us is going to be putting my tripod down. I'm going to go ahead and put these dried apples in a bowl. And these are just wine sap and, let's see, Golden Delicious, and I think some Fuji. And I'm just going to go ahead and put water up to the top of this bowl, and we'll hydrate them, and we'll be back. Okay, we've got the apples rehydrating. And I'm going to go ahead and put the stack part of the cake together, which is the cake, kind of cookie-ish. And I've never made this before, so we're doing this completely together. Most of the time when I make my videos, I just go ahead and I make the video with you guys. So if we make mistakes, we make mistakes, unless it's too awful, and then I have to redo it, but I'll tell you. So what we're going to do first is cream 1 cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. So I've got that at room temperature, and I'm going to cream it really well. Like I said, this is a really old-fashioned recipe, and I watched a documentary the other day on it on YouTube, which I thought was so cool. And this was a cake that was really strictly made in Appalachia, and they made it for weddings and everything. It was just a cake, a go-to cake for that. Special things, because it does take a long time to make this cake, because it does have to, they used to wrap it in cheesecloth, but we do plastic wrap now to keep it moist and moisten your cake with the apple filling. So it was something that, I guess weddings or funerals or get-togethers, but not everything according to the documentary. So now I'm not from Appalachia, but Willis is, so I listen to everything that he says because I love history, and I just think it's wonderful, and trying to keep these treasured memories and recipes alive. Okay, well, we've got that butter nicely creamed, and we're going to go ahead and put our 2 cups of white sugar in. Now, I've also seen where they use molasses, but this is a really old recipe, and it's called Miss Addie's Old Fashioned Apple Stack Cake. And I'm going to use it just like this, without the molasses, or sorghum molasses. So we're just going to put this together. Kathleen's standing over here making herself a oodles noodle. She's hungry. I made turkey soup from the turkey at Christmas, but I'm sure everybody's tired of it by now. I am. So I got a roast in the crock pot. And I'll tell you what, my kitchen is a wreck. So if you guys are looking over my shoulder and thinking, does that woman ever clean? Well, this was all clean, but I still have to make lasagna because the kids are coming tomorrow. Willis's kids are coming tomorrow, and the grands. We had to postpone our Christmas because we had such bad weather, no one could get out. there was ice and snow and they couldn't get down their mountain. And we didn't want to go anywhere from our mountain, so the roads were bad. So we're having lasagna and a salad. I'm making sourdough bread today for our garlic bread tomorrow. And Kelly's bringing orange, bundt cake, and punch. So we'll have a great day. But anyways, this is why my kitchen looks like this. And Willis has got all his ends from the pork butts and things that he cuts it off. He's going to make sausage later. So let me see if I can get over here and get a spatula real quick.
Not messy, just busy.
Yes, very busy. Very busy today. It seems like in my world, everything happens in one day. It's not like I could just make things ahead of time. It all comes up like, oh, make this or let's make this. So I'm going to cream this for a couple minutes because I want it to get really nice and fluffy. Almost to where it's white and foamy and fluffy. So what we're going to do is we have 6 cups of all-purpose flour. I got it sifted. And then we'll add our soda and baking powder. And this also calls for buttermilk. So this should be fun.
Buttermilk.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm going to let that go. And I'll be back in a couple minutes, guys, when this is ready. Okay, 2 minutes later. And we have got some really nice, fluffy, creamed butter and sugar. See? That's what I think we should have it looking like.
How looks like ice cream?
It does. All right.
You can't eat that one because it's straight butter.
Yeah, that's straight butter. Okay, so what we do next is we go ahead and put our 1 teaspoon of vanilla in. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and mix that. And we've got 2 hen eggs, whole eggs. And we're going to mix one at a time. Kathleen, when you go home, you can make this for Mom. Tell her what you learned up here in Appalachia. Okay. We'll let that mix and get nice and fluffy. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and put our 3 teaspoons of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda in here. And then I'm going to get my whisk and just whisk that around. Okay, I did sift this, so I've got it nice and aerated still with the whisk. It's a lot. Let me put this down so you guys can see what I'm doing here. There we are. There you see what I'm doing. All right. There's that. Okay. Now, we are going to add to the batter alternating with milk and the dry ingredients. So, I'm going to go ahead and use this and just add that in there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let me put my guard on so it doesn't fly everywhere. There we go. And then the milk is here. Just a half cup of buttermilk. I'm going to go ahead and just pour some of that in there. I'll probably have to do this a couple times. Well, maybe 3 times. This is a real thick batter because, like I said, it's almost like a cookie dough from what I've seen. So I'll pour some more. Oh, you can smell that buttermilk. It smells good. You smell it? Smell it?
Yes.
Smells good, doesn't it? It smells old-fashioned. All right, mix that up. And I'm going to add a little bit more. Let me see if I can get that over here so y'all can actually see me. A little bit more You see, it definitely needs the buttermilk.
If not, then it gets too dry.
Yep. It'll bog down the machine.
Yeah.
All right.
You don't want that either.
No. And when I've got to put this in, I only had one cake pan, and you need an 8 or 9 inch cake pan, and you have to have several. So Willis went to the store and got me the aluminum ones, and that's what we're using. Okay, I want to get that off of there before I added the rest of my flour. All right, here we go. Now, if you guys were doing this by hand, you would take a strong arm.
Oh, yes.
For sure. Okay, pour all that in there. Set that aside. And I'm going to go ahead and just pour my buttermilk in there. And I'm going to scrape out. That's a lot. You know, buttermilk sticks to the sides of your measuring cup. So you want all that fluid in there. Okay. Put that guard on one more time. I went ahead and did it fast. You can see it's flying up a little bit. Whoa!
Oh.
Well, like I said, we learn together. All right. There we go. So it's a real thick dough.
What just happened?
Oh, my lock on my bowl came apart there.
Oh.
So you have to make sure your lock is on there. I've had this mixer for, I guess, 7 years, and I've noticed it's kind of wearing out down there.
We live and we learn.
Yep. All right, so this is the dough, the actual cake batter, if you will. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I wanted to move my mixer so we could get to the next step. So I'm using these. Now, if you have cake pans, use them. That's fine, but this kind of got a nice little scallop around here. I'm going to go ahead and spray them all with the Pam. This is off-brand Pam. And you're going to need 6 or 7. Now, in that documentary I read, it said sometimes an odd number was the best that you could do, but this recipe actually calls for 6 or 7. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and get balls of this dough out and just make sure I've got at least 6, because you press it down in there, and I want them to be even as possible. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, because I think that would be the best way. Like I said, I didn't have anybody teach me this. I'm just going by the recipe that Willis's mom used and grandmother. And I'll have that in the description. Well, there's 4. I might be able to get 7 out of this. I don't know what it was for this to have an odd number, because it really didn't go into detail, but it said that was supposed to be the best. So want to do it right. I also saw, I don't know if you guys watch the British baking show, but Paul Hollywood, he's the master baker on that show, and he had another show where some guys from the U.S. and one was from Mississippi, he was making this, but they made it more like a cake, and you could eat it right away. Okay, well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that's what I recommend you guys doing. Making sure you've got all your dough out and pretty as evenly as possible, the balls. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with this one, and we're just going to press it down in here. I've got my oven set on 450, and you're supposed to just, you can either roll it out or you can press it down, and I'm going to press it down this time and just go to the sides like so. There you go. And make it flat. you know, because you don't want it lumpy. Okay, well, that looks pretty good, I think. What do y'all think? Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and do 2 more. And then I'll, oops, make sure I spray them. I know it's got a cup of butter in there, but I don't want it to stick into these. I would cry if they didn't come out. Okay, so we're just going to do that, and I'll cook 3 at a time. I also, in that documentary I saw, if I can find it again, I will put a link to it because I think it's pretty cool to watch, especially if you're not from Appalachia and you love history like I do. They used to make these in a iron skillet because it was something that was round, and in case they didn't have an oven, because not everybody had an oven, but they did have a way to cook on top of the stove. They look neat, don't they? So we'll get number 3 over here. I think it's going to look pretty with that scalloped edge, don't you?
Yes. It's going to look beautiful.
I hope so. Well, I think before we give this to Matthew, we're going to have to probably take a slice of it so it tastes good. We will know that it's not poison or anything. Sorry, Matthew.
Sorry, not sorry.
Okay.
I never seen noodles take so long to boil in my life.
That's because you're watching that pot.
I know.
Her noodles.
I'm gonna go sit down.
Her noodles aren't. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and put 3 of these in, and in the meantime, I'm going to put the other 3 balls in, and then, of course, I'll have 7. So we'll be back in a few. Oh, and it's 450 for 10 to 13 minutes is what the recipe says. Yep. Oh, yeah, 10 to 13 minutes. So we'll see. And they're supposed to be kind of brown. So be back in a few. Well, this is one that I took out. See, it's like a cookie. It's still a little soft in the middle, but this is what you want it to be. And you want it to be about that dark. So I've only taken 1 out because it did stick a little bit even with the spray. So if you guys don't want to use that, you could use lard or Crisco or butter. And they cooked about 8 to 10 minutes in my oven. Now, I think my oven's a little hot. But see, this is what they look like when they're in there. Aren't they pretty? So what I'm going to do is let them cool. They have to cool completely before you put your apple butter filling in the middle. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and make that apple butter filling, and I'll bring you guys over here so you can see. Okay, it's still a mess because I have so many things going on, but this is what I wanted you guys to see. I'm going to use my food processor, and I'm going to take it over to where the food processor is in a little bit, but I've got the bowl part of it. This is the rehydrated apples right here, and there's still water in them. I'm not going to use the juice. I'm just going to go ahead and use the apples. Here is my apple butter that I made this fall, and it smells really good. Oh my goodness, it's yummy. So what I'm going to do is put quite a few of these apples in here, and I see I had a little stem in there. And I'm just going to chop these apples up. I'm not going to put the apple butter in there with it because I don't want it to be mush. I want it to have some texture. The recipe calls for 1 pound of rehydrated apples, so I'm thinking that's about right. It's pretty heavy, so you can see I've got that filled up. So I'll be right back, guys. Okay, and here's the apples. You can see I diced them really nicely. They still have some texture to them, so that's about how big they are. Probably 5 pulses with my food processor, and I'm just going to go ahead and pour that into a big bowl and mix my apple butter in here. And I do have the video for apple butter. If you guys haven't seen it, it's really easy. I do a crock pot apple butter so you don't have to stand over the stove. I have made it the old-fashioned way where you stand over the stove. I remember my great-grandmother used to make apple butter, and it was an all-day adventure outside under a fire. So this is what I have. This is what it looks like. I think it looks great, and that's what we're going to use as our filling in between our layers. So as soon as the cake layers are finished cooling, we'll come back to that step. Okay, guys, I'm back, and I'm going to go ahead and stack the stack cake. So I'm going to put my tripod down, so I want to show you what I'm going to do. Okay, what I've got is a cake plate here, and I'm going to put plastic wrap on the bottom, just like this. And I'm going to have quite a lot of it to hang over the sides because you have to have it to where it wraps around this cake. Okay, so let me just cut that with a knife because I can never get it to cut right. All right, there's that. Just like that. Now, the stack cakes. Here's the cake. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can position this so you can see. Yeah, that's good. And my filling is right here. So, let's see if I can get this all positioned. Yeah, so it doesn't fall off the island. All right, so you just take this and you just spread it around to the edges. And you don't have to have a whole lot on here. It's just like one little thin layer. And this moistens this cake, or at this point right now, cookie. Okay. And I'll put another layer. This is really neat. I can just imagine in the ladies back in the day doing this, and all of us now that are keeping this tradition alive. And you know, I think I might put a little bit more of my apple butter in there just to make sure it stretches, because I do have 7 layers and the top. So I am actually going to use 2 pints of apple butter and that pound of apples. There we go. Okay, that looks good. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and just cook down apples, it calls for dried apples. Cook down apples yourself. You could do that. Make sure I get all these layers. I want to get them kind of where the little scallops line up. I think that would be really pretty. Okay, we're going to go ahead and just continue on with this. Oh, it just smells so good. And it's kind of like 2 heaping serving spoonfuls. And you see the cakes, they did get brown, but that's how they look in anything that I have seen. And Willis said that looked just like his grandmother's and his mom's when he came in. So he's been out rescuing our tractor last weekend when it was so bad. It got stuck out there in the ice, and he got Geraldine out of the mud. Okay. Isn't this neat? I'm just so happy with this. Might need a little teeny bit more here. Okay. And as far as you can, get to the edges. So that's that. And this is number 6. Definitely a stack, isn't it? And my KitchenAid mixer tried to kill me there when it tried to come off of the bowl. All right, here is, but we succeeded. We didn't let that happen. Okay, let me make sure this is all right. Okay, I'll put this. Now this is your last layer, so that's your top. And you're just going to go ahead and fill that on there. I may have a little bit left over, but that's all right. We can eat this on toast or anything. That looks so good. That's a whole apple there. I'm going to get you out of there. Okay. And look at that. Isn't that something? Isn't that pretty? Wow. Okay. Well, there is your apple stack cake. Appalachian apple stack cake. I filled all the layers. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to wrap it with the plastic wrap. And this needs to be wrapped for at least 48 hours. According to the recipe and to what I've heard from other people. And I know the next time I buy plastic wrap, I will invest in a better brand than the off brand, because I have taped the sides and I still haven't been able to get it to be successful. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and go around just to ensure that it is completely sealed. See what I'm doing there? Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on YouTube, even though I haven't waited 48 hours. But I am going to go ahead and wait a little while and uncover it and show you guys what it is. Hope you like that. So I hope you like, share, and subscribe, you guys. You have a great day and a happy New Year. I'll have some New Year things tomorrow on New Year's Eve. And I hope you'll just have a blessed, blessed New Year come to be. Bye.